Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel, and I'm a real estate agent and advisor here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with RE/MAX. And today, I am going to be doing a sit-down video in the comfort of my own home, which I usually do with Robert Wilson in our Mount Washington location, or I do neighborhood tours. But 'tis the season for sitting. And what I mean by that is 'tis the season for sitting homes. November, December, January, and February are big sitting seasons, as I call them. So I wanted to do a video on homes that sit, why they sit, and I wanted to give you 5 red flags on a sitting home that signal you should not buy this house. Now, homes can sit for a variety of reasons. I think that the number one reason homes sit is because they are overpriced. Yes, you heard it right. They are overpriced. And here's the thing. I am not afraid to tell my clients that the home is overpriced. There are so many homes in my career that I could have sold that I didn't sell and I didn't feel comfortable selling because they were overpriced. Price directly correlates to desirability, and there's a lot of factors that go into desirability as well. Obviously, location is one of them. People say, location, 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 and to a degree that is true. But sometimes there are things that are obviously wrong with a home that cause it to sit. Now, any agent worth their salt is going to tell their clients, hey, there's something wrong with this home. Not all agents. As you know, I've told you guys before, there are some agents that will sell or wheel and deal at any cost. There are like clear reasons why people shouldn't buy homes. You know, the home smells. It's, wet basement. It needs a lot of renovations. That's actually a big one. If a home needs too many renovations, we don't care what area it's in. People don't want to buy it. They don't want to, sink all this money into a home that's going to need thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to fix. Not to get off topic, but millennials tend to be very, very attracted to homes that need minimal, if any, work. Now, when you buy a home, there's no perfect home. Every home's going to need some form of work, mostly in the form of upkeep. Things do go wrong after you close. I'd say about 75% of my buyers have something go wrong immediately after close. So it's always going to be something. But renovations, that's a huge one. A house that is done up well, and I will call out poor renovations or, homes that are flipped for profit that look like crap. Homes that are sitting for a reason or a variety of reasons. I'm going to go through about 5 red flags to look for whenever you're looking at homes that have been sitting a long time. Now, again, if you're buying in November, December, January, or February, you are likely to be looking at homes that are sitting. And the reason you're probably buying in November, December, January, or February is because you want to edge out the competition. You want to look at homes when less people are willing to look, when less people are willing to move, when people don't want to deal with the cold weather. The market slows down considerably in the winter. I tell my clients this. There's always a chance that everybody has the same idea and it doesn't really slow down too much, but it always does slow down at least a little bit in the winter. That's why people look. So the first thing I would recommend looking at if you're looking at a home in Pittsburgh specifically is, where is the home situated? Is it situated on a flat piece of land? Is it situated on the lower side of a hill? Is it situated on top of a hill? Homes that are situated on top of hills here, and even better if they're on flat lots, have the best chance of having the least amount of water intrusion. Now, any older house, probably older than 1980, 85, is going to have some type of wet basement or water intrusion. And even newer homes can have that, of course. But it's especially prevalent in like extra old homes. 1880, 1890, which is like, about the oldest it gets in Pittsburgh. 1900, 1910, 1920. These homes are prone to water intrusion. Now, the type of foundations that were used, whether they were stone, sandstone, there's certain type of blocks of foundation, like certain blocks that were built with water intrusion in mind, and they are very porous, permeable foundations. So the water comes through and it airs out very, very easily because of how porous it is. You don't want to dry lock these basements. I always tell my clients that dry lock is this easy solution. A lime-based paint is the best option so that it has some breathability. But these foundations tolerate water intrusion better because they were built for that in mind. I think water intrusion was less of a dirty word back then. It was just like a fact of life. There wasn't so many newfangled things to remedy it or keep it away. If the home is situated on the bottom of a hill, I think there's gonna be a little bit more of a problem with water intrusion. Now, this can be cured with grading of the land around the home. If you have proper waterproof landscaping and grading, that can solve some issues. Obviously, French drains are the best option for heavy water intrusion. Sump pumps help. You want to look for homes that are prone to being flooded. That's the first thing you want to do. I would not necessarily recommend buying a home in a floodplain because eventually your home may flood. The thing is, when enough water intrudes a home and the foundation can't withstand it, there will be bowing walls. This is a big indication I look for. This is a big thing I look for in a home. I have been through a couple deals in my career where I wasn't looking for it. And of course I learned my lesson, so I'm always checking the walls. When you see a bowing wall, more than likely it's because at some point there was some water intrusion. When I see a bowing wall, that to me is an indication that there's something foundationally wrong with the house. I always say my superpower is I get vertigo in homes that are not like quite right, and that has proven to be true. But a bowing wall is a big indicator that you are going to at least need a wall anchor and some kind of preventative measures otherwise, whether that be a French drain or, what have you. I do freak my clients out over bowing walls because I find them to be unpalatable, especially if there is no remedy on them already. So wall anchors are not cheap. They're very expensive. They can be tens of thousands of dollars, especially if you need multiple of them. And it's a huge money sink. So that is something to watch out for. The second thing that comes with water intrusion is water damage, and I'm going to actually lump mold into there. The thing is, when you have older homes, a lot of the time it's actually not necessarily the foundation that's the problem, it's the piping in the house. A lot of the time, the piping is very, very old. It wasn't created to withstand like long periods of time. They probably didn't have the funds or the foresight for materials that would stand the test of time. And everything has an expiration date. Everything in this life has an expiration date. Every single thing. Except PVC. PVC is forever. I mean, that plastics weren't a thing back then. Plastics were not a thing.
There's a great future in plastics.
Eventually, they do fail. And they leak into your house. And they cause water damage. Water damage is, first of all, so difficult to remedy. It's very expensive because water gets everywhere. Water is like enemy number one. Water is the cancer to a house. It spreads like wildfire and it causes so much damage, especially to wood in your home. And what else does it cost? How much does wood cost these days? I see so much that there's just so much rotted wood that they couldn't afford to replace because it's so expensive anymore. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If you see any water damage on ceilings, ask about it because there might be a problem, or there might be a problem that was covered up, or there was a problem in the past. You want to know as much as you can about current problems and past problems so you know what to anticipate. But the second biggest thing is mold. Mold, do I have to go into it in more detail? I mean, mold is a killer. Once you have mold, it's everywhere. So I don't say that as an alarmist thing, but that's something to be aware of. If there's a lot of water, moisture intrusion present, mold is something that you have to keep your eye on, and mold can make you very, very ill, and it is very expensive to remediate. The third thing I want everybody to look at is the roof. I think that if you can find a home that either has a newer roof or a roof that is mid-aged, you should be okay to buy it without any type of concession or concern. Here's when I get concerned. When my buyers are buying a home for the first time, and typically that's the kind of buyers I work with, is first-time home buyers that are moving in state. I think the thing to be concerned with is the roof dipping, and is the roof is the roof streaky, and is it bald? Because those are the 3 indicators that the roof is end of life. And if you look closely, you can see how much grade and grain that the roof has on it. That is the marking of a good roof. Now, you can have a roof that has very, 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 very poor craftsmanship or workmanship. Those types of roofs should also be cautioned against. Things that have lifting shingles, things that have an unevenness to them. There are other signs of roofs that are not well made, not well put together. I would highly advise against buying a home that has a new roof that was done by maybe a contractor trying to flip the home and doing all the work himself. To me, that's a huge red flag. I mean, there are contractors that can do roofs very well. It's like their specialty, or they're just, they're good at everything. There's some out there like that. But most of the time, I prefer to see a roof that was done by roofers that have that specialize in roof work, because I've seen so many sloppy roof jobs, so many by contractors that just want a quick flip and they're trying to do it themselves. So these are things you got to watch out for, because that's going to be very expensive for you to fix a poorly done roof. You might have to tear it off and replace the entire thing. Another thing to watch out for is the roof laid over? Did somebody lay over an old roof with new roofing materials and pitch it to you as a new roof? I had a client who bought a house where it was not discovered that the roof was overlaid. And the reason it wasn't discovered was because there was snow on the roof, and the inspector didn't get up there that day because it's a safety risk to get up on a roof when there's snow on it. There's no roofer or contractor or inspector that will get up on a roof when it's snowing. I mean, maybe some crazy people would, but typically they don't want to, risk their lives. They found out later that the roof was overlaid, and it started leaking about 2 months after they moved in. I can't tell you what a terrible surprise and what an expense that was. They had to replace the entire roof regardless. Even though they were billed as getting a new roof, it looked okay from the ground. But if somebody had gotten up there to inspect it a little bit further, they would have seen that it was overlaid, and they probably would have never bought that house, or at least they would have negotiated the price down. The next thing that I would look out for is something that I mentioned in the beginning, and it's going to be cost of renovations. I think there's a lot of people that think, I'm going to move into a house and I don't care if it's outdated. Like, as long as I can live there, and I can live there for a while and be fine. Well, let me tell you something. My house wasn't outdated per se. When I bought it, it clearly needed some stuff. But I thought, I'm 26 years old. I'll find the money to do it. I'll find the time to do it. I'll just live here in the meantime. Now, my house isn't that bad. It's not. But it's bad enough where I'm like, okay, this house actually needs a lot of work. And it's expensive. And it's just gotten more and more expensive as the years have gone on. Since COVID, everything's gone up in price. But you really, really, really need to think very, 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 very hard about the types of renovations you're willing to do. If the whole entire house needs just a top to bottom renovation because it looks like it's from the 70s, you might want to rethink that, because it's going to be a lot of money. A lot of money to fix it. What comes with these renovations? Waterproofing the basement, new windows, new roof. You need to scrape and peel a bunch of paint. There might be lead-based paint in the walls. If you're tearing down walls, you might need to wear protective equipment. Of course, you're probably going to have a contractor doing it, but that's a lot of work and it costs a lot of money. Time is money. You might need a new bathroom. You might need a new kitchen. You might, dig into the kitchen sink and find there's mold all behind it. And that's an actual story that I heard happen to one of my clients. She wanted to renovate her kitchen, pulled out the sink. There was just mold everywhere behind the walls. These are things that people, they do not think about. So when you're buying a home, I caution against both sides. I caution against a home that is, it's renovated, but it's a quick flip, because you don't know what you're going to find. Quick flips are bad news. There's a ton of stuff they miss or cover up because it's quick and they want their money quick. And the other side is homes that need a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of money. And a lot of times I will see homes sitting for this reason, and that's the reason homes sit, is because they're so outdated and they're so overpriced because of where they're at, that sellers believe because of the location, they deserve more for the home. They're not actually looking at the comps. Why did this comparable sell for this much more than my home is worth? Why? They're not looking at that. They're looking at like one single variable. A lot of the time it's location, or a lot of the time it'll be like, oh, it's in this location and there's 4 bedrooms. Like that's my metric, you know, but they don't think about like the deeper stuff about a home that causes it to sell for a higher price. And the last thing I want to mention about when you're looking for a home that's sitting is I think that you want to look for environmental factors. You want to look for like smells is one. Getting smells out of a house can be difficult, especially if it's cat pee. Sorry to be so graphic. Sewer. I'm just going to wrap sewer into this. Sometimes you can smell a bad sewer and other times you can't. If you can't smell it, and even if you can, you're going to get a sewer inspection, because anytime I'm an agent to somebody, they always get a sewer inspection, unless there's documentation that the sewer was repaired at some point. Sewers are some of the most expensive things to fix, particularly in urban areas or areas that have large lots. Because if an area has a large lot, it's like, oh, the sewer, you know, goes back 500 million feet. You know, it's half an acre. It goes back, you know, behind that entire half an acre. Like that's a lot of sewer line to either line or, you know, replace. God forbid you have to replace it. Then you got to dig up a bunch of land. If it's in the city, it sucks because a lot of the time they have to dig up concrete. And it's just very expensive no matter what way you slice it. I think the cheapest I've ever seen is like $8,000. And it was like a very short sewer in the city where they had a yard where they didn't have to like dig into concrete. But that's the cheapest I've ever seen it. $8,000. That's the cost of a roof. That's how much it costs to line a sewer, if they can even line it. Sometimes they can't even line it. I did a deal a couple years ago where the sewer was completely disconnected. And there was no lining that. It was $30,000, $40,000, I think. And it ate into the entire seller's proceeds. Now that wasn't anything out of the buyer's pocket. But it is something you have to keep in mind because it can take months and months and months and months on end to fix. Some buyers, they don't have the time to wait to get that fixed. So always pay attention to like, what am I smelling in this house? It'll be the first indicator that there's like mold, cat smells, sewer, any of that kind of stuff. You want to look where the house is situated. Like, you know, is it on a busy road? Is there off-street parking? Am I paying too much for a house that has on-street parking? Because a lot of the time homes don't sell because they're in an undesirable location. Is it in an undesirable neighborhood? No, I'm not going to talk about any neighborhoods. That's for you to do your research. Niche.com is always available. But location does matter. And I said location at the beginning of the video, but it does matter. And these are the big things you've got to look out for. And I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple of them. I mean, there's so many factors to buying a house, which is why you want to hire a real estate professional who's not afraid to tell you that you shouldn't buy this house and you should buy this one. Because when I tell you that, I'm telling you that because my reputation, my morals, my ethical compass, it's all on the line. I would never sell a house to somebody that I wouldn't myself buy in some capacity. Now, not every house is my style, but you see where I'm getting at. Hire a realtor who's gonna tell you the truth. Even when, you know, telling the truth delays a sale, they can't make a buck on it. Hire a realtor who's going to tell you the truth, okay? Because it's so important that you follow these guidelines when you're buying homes that don't have any competition and they're sitting, because there's always a reason that those homes are sitting. So thank you so much for tuning in to my channel. Please like, please subscribe if you want more Pittsburgh real estate content, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.